Good evening, I'm Cathy Lewis. Tonight, transportation in Hampton Roads. It's not the first time we've talked with Phil Shucet about how we get around, but Phil Shucet has some different ideas now than he's had in the past, a past that includes tenure as the head of the Virginia Department of Transportation. Shucet is famous in transportation circles for doodling a high-rise bridge to soar over the existing Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. Just an idea, and just to prove that there's more than one way to get people from here to there. His latest project, the new Jordan Bridge. Shucet brokered the deal that has the city selling the land to a private developer who's agreed to demolish the broken bridge, haul it away, and put a brand spanking new one in its place. All for a $2 one-way toll, and all by 2010. I'm happy to have Phil Shucet joining us tonight on What Matters. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well.
Is that a fairly accurate description of what we're up to here?
I'd say so. It sounds
good. It's kind of a big, bold idea, isn't it?
Well, it's doing something.
Doing something. And we said in the beginning that you had begun to think differently about some things than you used to, and that's probably the principal item.
Yeah, I'd say so. You know, for several years, I was right on the wagon of, by golly, if we can just say it enough times, people will understand that we need to raise taxes and raise more revenue. And it's really no longer an issue of whether or not I believe that's true. The point is, that hasn't happened. Congestion has continued to get worse. Along the way, we've gotten awful accustomed to doing nothing. And I just frankly decided that's not acceptable anymore, that I needed to find for myself a way to contribute to a solution and not prolong an argument.
You know, it's interesting because I think the truth is that if we were to take any of the programs that we've done over time, you know, you could almost re-rack the tape back 6, 7 years ago, and we'd be talking about the same things in some respects.
Yeah,
so I guess that's a part of this story as well.
It's part of the story as well. Yeah. Absolutely.
So how did you come to this this new way of thinking, and what does it mean for you? Certainly, what you're doing at the Jordan is a piece of that.
Yeah, that's certainly a piece of it. The Jordan Bridge was very timely for me. I've known the Fig family of Fig engineers for almost 30 years. Met Linda Fig's father back in West Virginia. And Linda called with an idea about a new Jordan Bridge after she had heard that this other one had closed. And I thought, well, you know, here's an opportunity to seize something that can happen. And who cares whether or not it's on the priority list of regional projects? I guess it's better to say I didn't care whether it was or wasn't. People had a bridge, they lost a bridge, and we could get them a new one. And that's what mattered. To me.
And the priority piece of that is interesting because we can put together all the lists we want about priorities, but when the bridge decides to go, the bridge goes.
You know.
And that's essentially what we were up against, was a time crunch.
And we've been up against it before. The Kings Highway Bridge came and went, gone, not going to come back. You know, the Jordan Bridge, up, gone.
Because the city's decision was, and you understand this from a safety perspective, was too bad there's not another bridge out there, my friends, but it's unsafe, and so we have to shut it down.
Right, and we should note that the city acted with utmost precision and deliberation in reaching their decision, and they, without question, made the right call. This wasn't a dramatic issue, oh, let's close a bridge. I mean, these folks did what they had to do to protect public safety.
And unfortunately, they didn't have the money to put up another one right away. That's certainly a common refrain we hear across the country these days when it comes to infrastructure.
I mean, you know, the Jordan Bridge, in relative terms, some people could say, well, that's a small project. But I don't see any localities around here with $100 million to throw at anything.
So how did you, so you talked to this person,
right?
And how did this whole thing come about?
Well, it was interesting. You know, you're familiar with the whole public partnership route that things can go from a state point of view, but the Jordan Bridge was owned by the city of Chesapeake. It wasn't a state asset; it was a city asset, And when it was turned over to the city back in the 70s, it included the land that the approaches sat on. So a little light bulb went on and said, well, let's just buy the property, including the old bridge. And in consideration for that, every agreement has to have consideration. The consideration was, we'll build a new bridge. Bounced that idea past Mayor Krasnoff, and
that phone call must have been interesting.
It was.
Hello, Dr. Krasnoff, got an idea for you.
And the mayor said, "You mean we could get a bridge?" A little more explanation. "You're telling me we could get a bridge?" A little more explanation.
Well,
we could
it
get
sounds
a bridge.
like we could get a bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, Mayor, I think you can get a bridge. And you talk about somebody that was determined to make something happen. He took that and said, "I want you to come in here next week," which happened to be December 17th. We had this meeting, a briefing with him and the city staff, and he individually called each member of city council to come in that same afternoon.
Wow.
To hear this same briefing. So in the space of 2 o'clock to about 6, we had briefed individually, so there were never more than 2 in a room at the same time, each of the 9 members of city council. 6 days later, the city council formally received the proposal, which they didn't need to do. They could have said thanks, but no thanks. That was December 23rd, and January 27th, we had an approved agreement.
Happy New Year.
So, you know, one of the things that was different there is that there were 9 people that could say yes or no.
Right.
And they could say no. You know, it's all right to say no, but it didn't take 3 years to get to that point. It took literally the space of 4 weeks. And a lot of hard work on everybody's part, on everyone's part, on the private sector side as well as the city staff, who really dug in and did their due diligence.
Yeah.
It was a great experience.
And you say this is going to be finished by 2010.
Yes.
Right?
It
When
would
I
be
read that,
finished in
I have
2010.
to say, I thought, you know,
yeah.
Some of these projects we hear are years and years and years in the making.
Well, we do, don't we? We do hear that. And we've kind of
Why
gotten
is that?
used to saying,
Yeah.
well, that's how long it takes.
Right.
And some people have asked me at a few public gatherings, are you sure this bridge is going to be safe?
I mean,
Because you're going to build it so
Sure.
fast. Well, we're not going to build it fast. It doesn't need to take any longer. August 2007, the bridge over the Mississippi River in Minneapolis collapsed on I-35. Rebuilt in 11 months. 11 months from beginning to end. And FIG led that design-build team. The Victory Bridge in New Jersey, 15 months. A beautiful bridge, 4-lane bridge, a more complex project than the Jordan. So projects don't have to take a long time. It's just becoming ingrained in us that it does. And what happens during all that time? What happens to the price? Cha-ching, cha-ching. It goes up and up and up.
So then why does it take so long? What is the reason that they can do it in Missouri? We've had people call the radio show who are in the Navy. They're deployed out on the West Coast for a period of time. We had this one fellow call up and say, you know, I was in the West Coast when they had that earthquake. Come back here. I go back. You know, they're fixed up. We're still a mess. What takes so long?
Well, there are some circumstances. You know, when there's an earthquake, when a bridge fails catastrophically, people lose lives. A bright light shines on those projects. Traffic is stopped.
So they shoot to the top of the list.
They shoot to the top. They shoot to the top of the list. Plus, there's no traffic to maintain while the construction is going on. That's a huge
Fair
plus.
point.
You know, if we shut down I-64 to do the Battlefield Boulevard interchange, it would get finished real fast. But you know, we're not quite ready to shut down 6 lanes of Interstate 64 through Chesapeake. So they take more time. But do they take too long? Yeah, in most cases, I think they probably do. That
Is that part of the contracting process? Is it?
No,
What's
it's
behind
more
that?
part of the study process.
Okay.
That we.
So the front end.
The front end.
Yeah.
The front end. Environmental studies are very important. having projects go through a public process, all very important. Mm-hmm. Do we take longer to do that than we probably need to? Yeah, I think we probably do. But then you have to be careful. Protecting the public trust is important. There's only so much money to spend. There's a lot of projects to consider.
Yeah.
So they have to go through some process. Every now and then, a Jordan Bridge floats to the top, and you say, let's do it.
So are there other projects that you see in this area that have the Jordan Bridge formula, the idea that we could get at it with a public-private partnership a little bit faster?
I think there are some that have some of the characteristics.
Okay.
And I'm looking for more of those.
I thought you might
here at home to make happen.
Well, let's talk about the Midtown Tunnel, because
sure.
I know you have said previously that Midtown is one you feel like we could get a little bit ahead of steam on here.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And most heavily traveled two-lane road in the Commonwealth, something like that?
Right, and sits right next to the downtown tunnel, which is the most heavily traveled tunnel in Hampton Roads. Some people are surprised to hear that. The Midtown Tunnel project has a bit of a head of steam now. The Secretary of Transportation, I believe, I can't speak for him, but I believe he is very committed to moving this project through the process. He sees it as an important project. He's very concerned that it be done in a proper manner and in full transparency to the public. Those public meetings of the independent review panel started last month, and are 4 more to go. So that's a project that's moving. But at one time, I used an example that 3 years of construction cost escalation for the Midtown Tunnel project would build a new high-rise bridge for free. So, you know...
So the time has a cost to it.
Time has a cost. Yeah. So maybe people do know something when they look with a jaundiced eye and say, well, are you really sure you need more money? Or do you just need to do things differently? I think we need more money, and we need to do things differently.
Both are reality.
Both.
Yeah. Let's talk for a moment about the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, because I have a vision of what that must have been like when you were sitting there. I think you doodled it on the napkin or something. I don't know, little piece of paper. Hey, how about this? And then, of course, it's all over the front page of the paper, and everybody's talking about Phil Shucet and that whole arch bridge over the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel.
Right.
But wasn't the point of the exercise just to say, hey, we could try something, we could do something?
Absolutely.
Lots of ways to think about it.
The point was, don't fix on only one solution and then determine that one solution is too expensive or takes too much right-of-way. Think more broadly. Now, if the Navy says, hey, look, we've objected to a bridge across the Hampton Roads Harbor for 50 years and we still object, there's no way it's going to happen, fine. Then don't spend any time on it.
Right.
But frankly, that objection in that strong of precise language isn't out there. So why not?
So when Delegate Glenn Oder asked for the study, asked for a study, said, I'd like to add a lane or two within the existing right-of-way.
Right.
And his contention is what came back was a study that was far more complex than what he had asked for, with a whole lot more permutations than he had asked for.
Well,
is he right?
I'm not going to be too critical of what VDOT did there. I think VDOT responded in a very short amount of time, relatively speaking, in a very short amount of time, with some very good information. Enough information to say, well, there are a few of these options we don't want to pursue because they do take right away. Well, okay, don't pursue those. But we shouldn't stop it at that. I don't think VDOT had any intention of saying, well, here's the definitive answer now to another crossing at the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. In my judgment, there's plenty of information there to carry forward, and frankly, I believe there are some answers there that could be put in place without taking all this right away on Willoughby Spit. They require a willingness to think a little bit differently, and as I have time, I want to put some more color on what some of those options may be. And specifically, I'm not ready to give up on the thought of a bridge. I think a bridge could be thought about more creatively than we have so far, and could potentially offer many advantages to reduce congestion during the peak hour.
And I will tell you, congestion reduction is rapidly becoming the name of the game in Hampton Roads. So they've just done some animation, did this a couple months ago, over at the Virginia Modeling and Simulation Center, and I think we have a little bit of that now. Now, what we're seeing might look a little bit like dots on a screen, but here's the deal. If you look at it carefully, what you see is once there's an incident at the HRBT without any other modification, you see the traffic starts to back up pretty quickly, and the little dots become a lot more compressed. And what we're rapidly coming to is a time when it's going to take us a lot longer to recover from those incidents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, when there's congestion in Hampton Roads, most people that are caught in it never know why it occurred.
Right.
Okay? That's because something happened, it got cleaned up, it got moved out of the way, but that buildup of congestion happens geometrically. Once the cars start backing up, you're stopped. Nothing's going to happen. Then all that has to, it's like tying your shoe in too many knots. You know, you can tie them in a bunch of knots a lot faster than you can get the knots out, right?
Right, exactly.
Traffic works the same way.
The other thing I think that's interesting about these simulations, and I regret these aren't sort of actual representations of cars, because I think people could get that so much easier. But when you look at what happens when you throw the third crossing into the mix, which I don't think anybody has the money to throw in anytime soon, even with the third crossing, just based on the growth in traffic that we're going to have, it's still going to be crowded. The difference is going to be what happens when there's an incident. At least that's my shorthand conclusion out of that.
Well, what happens with the third crossing, regardless of where the tunnel crossing is people have options.
Exactly.
That's what you don't have now. Okay, you're headed to I-64 and you've made the turn around 264 and there's an incident. Well,
good luck to you.
You know, game's over.
Yeah.
School's out.
Yeah.
You know, you have no choice. The third crossing, and more importantly, its connections, provide options to say, whoa, I'm out of here, I'm going over to 664.
Right. And that's what's really interesting when you look at these simulations, because the incident happens. The question is how quickly we can recover with those options.
Well, and you can't choose an option that doesn't exist, right?
Well, true enough. There is that. There is that. Boy, I tell you, this is been a perplexing problem for the region. And of course, this time in the General Assembly, we had so much talk about just tough economy all the way around, receipts down, and all the rest of it. As you look at this role of public-private partnership, what sort of role is that going to play going forward?
I think it's going to play a much larger role because I think tolls or alternative means of paying for infrastructure are absolutely have to be part of the future. It's not that the public needs the brains of the private sector. That's not it. It's that the public doesn't have the money. The public agencies just...
So the private agencies bring the money.
The private agencies bring innovation, bring financing that's got to be repaid somehow, either through tolls or through a payment plan from the public sector, one way or the other. The private sector's not going to do it because, you know, gee, Hampton Roads is having some trouble, let's go help them out a little bit.
And then we've heard a lot about the stimulus package and what it may mean.
Yes.
I was interested in hearing you talk the other day about what one of your former DOT colleagues did. I guess that's what Department of Transportation colleagues did.
We can't give you the secret handshake.
I'm good with that. Thank you so much. But I thought it was interesting what this what Missouri was it or?
He's a former DOT director in Utah. Actually.
Utah, the guy that the stimulus money got.
I know what you mean. I'm sorry. Yes, Missouri.
Yeah.
Missouri.
As the
president's
deal?
ink is drying on the deal, he was inking 4 construction contracts in Missouri. I mean, literally within minutes out in the field. Pretty cool, pretty bold, I thought. Now, he's the type of guy that is one heck of a fantastic leader, Pete Ron. And you know, he made a "I'm going to do something" statement,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that day,
Yeah.
that day.
Do you have the sense the stimulus package will mean a lot for Virginia, or
Well,
are we just not that far down the road? Because the whole deal was shovel ready, whatever that means.
Well, you know, I think in terms of transportation in the big picture, quite frankly, like it's great that we're doing it. We'll repave a lot of roads, but it's
not
kind of a
huge.
yawner. It's
Yeah,
kind of a
okay.
yawner for transportation. That's my personal opinion. I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, looking down on it.
And as we look at this is the other interesting thing, I think, when you look at the interconnectedness of this region from a federal perspective, from the importance of the military community, from the perspective of getting out of here in case there's a storm, when there's another storm, do you think that we've explored all of those avenues enough to position the transportation of this region more as a federal
No,
issue?
I don't think we have. Cathy, I think we've spent 12 years arguing, drawing a line in the sand, and every year we make it a little bit deeper, and a little bit deeper, and a little bit deeper, and we poo-poo the General Assembly, and they say, well, you just want to raise taxes, and then we point back to our little list of projects.
Right.
Well, look, get over it. You know, I was a big proponent of raising taxes, a big proponent of the third crossing. Well, the idea isn't to come back every year and make the same speech. It's to find a way to do something, and we just have to figure that out better. But if the attention of leaders is going to be on the argument, then all we'll do is keep arguing.
So what's the average citizen do with that?
Well, here's what the average citizen does with it. Says, you're a bunch of bozos. We know it. We knew it to begin with, and you reprove that to us every year. Because here's what the average citizen is trying to do. The average citizen is trying to get a kid to daycare, another kid to school, to get to an hourly job at maybe one of two hourly jobs, so they can get home in time to get dinner on the table, and then maybe take a class at TCC
Right.
in the evenings. Now, you could say, well, if you could just educate that person and let them know how much congestion is costing them, they would be willing to pay. The dog doesn't hunt. It doesn't work. So you have to think maybe there's something else. And what could that something else be? Build something that benefits them. Build something somewhere that someone says, whoa, hey, my life today is better than it was yesterday because I did fill in the blank.
Just do something.
Do something, whether it's the Jordan Bridge, whether it's the Norfolk Light Rail, whatever it may be that demonstrates that we can do something that benefits people's lives.
Well, Phil Shucet, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. I want you to come back and visit with us
I'll
again,
do it.
and we'll look forward to that. And best of luck on the Jordan Bridge.
Thank you.
2010.
Thank you.
Under budget
2010.
and on time. I love that.
Yep.
I'll be back in just a moment with a final thought. Have you noticed how often in our public discourse we're using the word trillion these days? Well, our producer, Danny Epperson, put together a great look at what $1 trillion actually looks like. Let's take a look at this. Now, we're all familiar with the largest bill there is in circulation. That's the C-note, the $100 bill with Ben Franklin on it. Most of us have seen them. Slightly fewer of us have owned them, and they are guaranteed to make friends wherever they go. Okay, let's visualize $1 trillion. You start with a packet of 100 $100 bills. Less than a half an inch thick. It has about $10,000 in it. Would probably get most of us through the weekend. Now, believe it or not, this next little pile is $1 million. 100 packets of $10,000 each. You could stuff that into a grocery bag. Where a measly $1 million looks a little unimpressive, look at what $100 million looks like. Looks like it would fit on a shipping pallet. $1 billion, that's 10 pallets of $100 million. Now we're getting somewhere. And are you ready for this? From there, we take you to $1 trillion. That's right, a million, 1,000 billion, 1 followed by 12 zeros. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you $1 trillion. I wish I could give you $1 trillion. So the next time you hear somebody toss around that phrase, $1 trillion, you'll know exactly what they're talking about. Well, here's something that won't cost you a dime. Some of our programs we're working on for you in the weeks ahead. We're talking again about transportation with a focus on public transit. We will literally hit the road to take you for a ride on an HRT bus. Do you know how to use it? You might be surprised at what you don't know. And in the coming weeks, we'll show you how to make your home as green as your backyard, and we're not talking about color. Plus, where do you break away for summer vacation? Are you staying closer to home this year? We'll talk tourism here in Hampton Roads to see how the region hopes to bring in dollars, but also satisfy those staycation visitors as well. To find out more on what we have in the works for you, sign up for our weekly email updates. They're called e-bits. You'll find them on our website at whatmatters.tv. You can also email us. Send your letters to whatmatters@whro.org, and you can also find us on Facebook. You can write to us, 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk, Virginia, 23508, or call us at 889-9425. Any way you want to get in touch, we're always glad to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week for another look at What Matters.